Okay, welcome back to Senate Education. It's January 27th. Welcome, Chancellor Zidnotny, Ms. Scott, Ms. Lavasseur. We are going to go through your presentation. Looking forward to hearing your updates as well as your response to the governor's recommend in the budget. And with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you inviting us here today. Based on what we just heard before, we're not going to show our slides on the screen. We're going to assume that you've all got access to them.
Yeah.
So we'll do it that way. For the record, I'm Sophie Zidnotny. I'm the Chancellor of the Vermont State College System. I'm joined by Sharon Scott, our Chief Financial and Operating Officer, and Catherine Lavasseur, our Director of External and Governmental Relations. So we're going to go through this relatively swiftly, so there's plenty of time for questions at the end. So the Vermont State College System consists of the Community College of Vermont, Castleton University, Northern Vermont University, and Vermont Technical College. As you know, the VSC has embarked on a complete system overhaul in partnership with the state. We're working to transform our schools, to modernize our services, and expand our role as workforce development partners in the state. So we're committed to doing this in a way that enhances our offerings to Vermont learners, keeping public higher education accessible in our rural communities, and continuing to eliminate our structural deficit over the next 4 years. So, and again, we do want to thank the committee for its support and the significant investments that were made in FY22. So we're going to provide a little bit of information on that in a moment. I'm not going to go through slide 3. It has, again, just data on it regarding the economic impact that the Vermont State College System has. I would note that we do have campuses across the state. We've got 5 main campuses. We have 12 separate CCV locations, and then Vermont Tech has additional nursing sites across the state. We are one of the largest regional employers as well, and we employ nearly 3,000 people across the state. So in the 4th slide, we have what we call our Apple picture, which is kind of trying to summarize very swiftly what it is we're working on here. As outlined by the Select Committee and endorsed by the state in 2021, one of our main transformation goals is to unify Castleton University, Vermont Technical College, and Northern Vermont University into a single accredited institution spread across the existing campuses. So the new university, which will be called Vermont State University, is set to be launched in July 1 of 2023. So after that, the Vermont State College...
Just to be clear, Chancellor, this is the document titled Vermont State Colleges System?
Yes, it's okay. No, it's slide number 4. It doesn't have a title on it.
Okay.
It's just number 4. It's a Venn diagram.
Okay, thank you.
It's got 2 circles and then the overlap in the middle.
If I may, Senator, there's 3 documents that we submitted. They're under my name on the committee website, and this is the one labeled slideshow testimony.
Okay, so it is that one. Thank you very much.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, so this slide just shows that after the, when we've brought the 3 institutions together as Vermont State University, the Vermont State College System will be comprised of the Community College of Vermont and Vermont State University. And then the piece in the middle on this slide is reflecting that we're going to be consolidating administrative functions across the system to streamline our services and business practices. We're also going to be bringing together the workforce development and again, working on our academics. So things like our libraries, having a system-wide library, Common Gen Ed, things like that. So that's what that slide is reflecting. And again, happy to discuss it in more detail. And again, the important thing is we're trying to accomplish this without raising tuition. So we froze tuition for this year, and we are using state funds, not student tuition dollars, to cover the cost of transformation as we move forward. On the 5th slide, we have...
Can I ask a question, Mr.
Yes.
Chair? So as you're...
Yes, please.
Thank you. This is helpful, but it does stimulate some questions. So as you're looking at administrative and technical coordination, a single library and so on, but you're still going to need to have human resources at each of the campuses. And then, but you're also going to have somehow someone in charge overall. So how are how are you sorting out the people in the situation? So are we losing administrators in this case, or are people keeping their jobs? I'm just trying to sort out how that all.
Yeah,
turns out.
so far we have not laid anyone off. What we've been doing is trying to function strategically. So as we've had senior administrators leave, looking at short-term contracts. So for example, we have the interim president at Northern Vermont University is a contract employee that is here for a year. So we're also trying to think, we had an employee who tragically was killed in October, who'd been with the system a long time. And so with her death, looking at ways to cover the work that she did. And we had someone step up from Castleton University to say, I could take over doing the aspects of her job for Vermont Technical College, and then backfilling with more clerical support to help the employee who'd stepped up. So trying to be strategic as folks leave, and thinking ahead about strategically what we need. We are working right now on, with our board, with our presidents, really looking at what the organizational structure will be moving forward. So for example, something like human resources, a lot of those things we're thinking about doing on a shared services model. So we would have some of those functions being centralized, and then being delivered, the services being delivered to the two remaining institutions. So that's work that we're undertaking right now. We do recognize one of the ways we'll be reaching the $5 million savings in structural deficit over the 5 years. One of the ways will be on reduced administrative costs as we move forward. Does that answer your question, or did you have other specifics?
No, thank you. That's very helpful.
It is a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. Yeah.
And there's a lot of work going on with regard to it. So that actually kind of takes us to the next slide, which talks about scope of the transformation initiative.
So,
and on
Chancellor,
this one,
I just want to, for those who this all might be in some ways somewhat new to, and they're watching us, there's no mention, of course, in those first four images of Johnson, of Linden. So would you just remind those who are watching that the two of them have really been combined into, I'm correct in saying, Northern University?
That's correct. So for Vermont State University, we would have 5 main campuses. So that would include the Linden and Johnson campuses, which currently are Northern Vermont University, the Randolph and Williston campuses that are currently Vermont Technical College, and then the Castleton campus that's at Castleton University. And then Castleton, for example, has a nursing site in Bennington. It has the Killington Resort Management Program. So again, we're very widely distributed across the state.
Thank you.
All right. So the 5th slide talks about our transformation. And on this, you can see, just following up on the question we just had from Senator Lyons, in terms of the work that's going on, we currently have 4 major transformation teams that are working, and then you can see the sub-teams under each group. So for example, human resources is under administrative operations, and there is an employee services team that is looking at how will we be delivering our HR services moving forward, for example. So in addition, I just wanted to let you know, very pleased to report that for this academic year, we've established a unified system-wide budget for FY22. We've accomplished the first step of our structural deficit reduction for FY23. We've committed to a professional strategic project management approach for the transformation work, which again is kind of what you can see on this slide. We've made tremendous progress on overhauling our academic program array. So in collaboration with our faculty, we've been working to combine over 250 programs into about 100 higher quality, career ready and relevant options. We've determined the mission and vision of Vermont State University, and right now we're going through the search process for the first president of Vermont State University. So we do recognize that this work's going to be going on, for several years. It doesn't happen overnight. So although we're looking to launch in July of 23, some of this work, particularly on the administrative end, will likely be ongoing. Our main focus right now is on the student experience and the academic operations, because those are absolutely critical to a successful launch of the new university. We do have a lot of people working on this. We have over 150 faculty, staff, and administrators working on these particular teams. We have other people being added as specific projects come up. We had 87 faculty members working over the summer and continuing to work on the program array, and about a dozen faculty leaders who've really been working hard on the faculty governance structure for the new university. We also have an advisory council of students that have been assisting us, and that's been a wonderful experience working with them through this. The next slide we have is number 6. Again, that's more of an...
Thank you. Could I just ask, you talked about the array of courses and the consolidation really, and cut down of the numbers. Can you just address a little bit of how that's happening? How are those courses being either consolidated or eliminated? You talked about high quality courses, which is great to hear, but what are we, what direction are you using to get to those high quality courses?
Yeah, so we started in, I guess, fall of, it's so hard in Zoom time to remember when we are, I guess, fall of 2020. One of the recommendations that we knew we needed to do was to eliminate duplicate programs. So this was before we even knew what the select committee was going to recommend. So we had faculty working primarily for Castleton and Northern Vermont University on how do we eliminate duplicate programs, because over the years, we've obviously developed a number of duplicate programs. Out of that work, it was recognized that it would be challenging to manage that internally. And what we needed was a framework to work on, to look at programs and how do we do them. And so we worked with an outside company called RPK Group that took a look at all our academic data and came up with a framework to help the faculty go through and look at, with different measurements and things, look through the programs. And then over the summer, faculty in the different programs. So for example, in political science, we had a political science faculty member down in Castleton. We have one in Northern Vermont University. So that's where we get some benefit in terms of improving the quality of the programs, is giving students the opportunity to have access to additional faculty members. So the faculty worked over the summer. We were able to get a grant to help fund their work over the summer. And they came back with a program of around 101 programs. So a lot of that was eliminating duplication. And what the work they're doing now is going through to figure out, well, what courses will be in these programs. And we've been working with them. The timeline was very tight, and yet we absolutely have to know what programs we will be delivering for the new university in order for our marketing and admissions folk to get out there and get the word out so we can start recruiting for fall of 2023. And so we have worked very closely with the faculty to come up with a timeline that works for them and their governance review process. So they will be working with the marketing and admissions folk to come up with sort of the elevator speech for their program so we can go out and start marketing. And then the full review of those programs will be happening in the fall next year. So this is all, faculty are absolutely essential to that. They have to be involved. That is squarely within their responsibility. So they have been very involved. And for the most part have really worked very, very well collaboratively. We had a lot of positive feedback from the summer on how much they enjoyed getting to know their counterparts on the other campuses. The same thing for Vermont Tech, although that some of their programs obviously are a lot more unique. So there's less change there. But again, one of the parts of optimization was also thinking through how can we deliver our programs in a way that makes them more accessible to more students.
Okay, thank you. Go on.
All right, so slide number 6 is really giving a sort of a profile of our students and our enrollment. So I'm not going to dive into that one, but again, happy to answer if there are questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to talk about some of the requirements around Act 74.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having us here. There are a number of requirements from Act 74 that we are required to inform you on, but it's wonderful us to have the opportunity to be able to do so because it's not something we've done for you before. On slide 7, we really share a breakdown of our student enrollment for you by headcount. For full and part-time students. And I want to note for you that the Vermont State College's total is an unduplicated headcount. And what that really means is that a student who's taking a class at CCV and also taking a class at Castleton is only going to be counted once. So you cannot add across the numbers just in case you're wishing to be able to do so. And we're going to be sharing these benchmarks with you as a committee for the next several years. So we're really beginning to show the enrollment here as CCV, and then for the new Vermont State University, as that is how we will begin continuing that over the coming years. On slide 8, we share full-time equivalent enrollment for students by institution by year. And full-time equivalency is a slightly odd calculation in that it's based on full-time enrollment, and full-time enrollment in our system is defined as between 12 and 18 credits a semester. And you'll note that due to the very large volume of part-time students, as you saw on the previous slide, that FTE is always going to be lower than the total number of headcount that we have. Slide 9 provides you with a breakdown of the courses that we offer here at the Vermont State Colleges with enrollment in various categories. These include fewer than 5 students, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and more than 20 students. There's a couple of things to note here, and that is that in the fall of 2021, there is an increase in the less than 5 category, and that is because one-to-one courses like music lessons were back online this fall, and they were not online the previous fall. So that does have a change. And also, as Chancellor Zadatny noted, we are looking at programs that we are beginning to teach out, and those smaller classes will remain in those associated upper level programs until those programs are taught out for our students, because we are obligated to make sure that our students are taken care of. On slide 10, we talk about our statewide course offerings. So one of our strategic goals for the Vermont State Colleges
Can I
is
ask
accessibility.
a quick
Sure.
question about the numbers? So these are undergraduate students. Are you including graduate students in this?
It is
count?
total enrollment. It's
So it's
undergraduate
everything.
and graduate. Yes.
Both. I got it. So when you have a graduate student taking one course every several weeks and taking 2 or maybe 4 or 5 courses a year, is that a full-time student or a part-time student?
They're considered a part-time student for the purposes of this calculation.
Okay.
So we do calculate 12 credits as full-time for all, whether you're both undergraduate or graduate level, just for the ease of calculation. Though from a federal financial aid standpoint, we do allow students to receive, graduate students to receive full-time federal aid at 6 credits. So slide number 10, we talk about these statewide course offerings, which is a critical goal, strategic goal for us. What it's showing you is the first section on the left-hand side, the percentage of courses that are offered online by the Vermont State Colleges institutions for each of those 3 years. As well as on the right-hand side, the number of programs that are offered in a distance learning format. And I want to just point out here that for the Vermont State Colleges, a distance education or distance learning includes any program or courses where components of the teaching used are via technology and not just face-to-face in the classroom. That means that's could be programs where courses have a professor who's face-to-face in one classroom, but has students that are joining synchronously at another space, or that could be fully online or self-paced. On slide 11, we have information regarding our degrees and credentials of value that were awarded. The VSC offers both credit and non-credit bearing courses and programs, apprenticeships and internships. And in 2020 to 2021, we graduated 2,026 individuals into our workforce. And just as a reminder, 2/3 of our graduates live and work in Vermont post-graduation. Let's see, the next several slides, slides 12 through I believe it's 15, show the percentage of full-time first-time students who return to year 2. And these are shown by institution. And I'll just want to take a quick moment to note that for many of our students, they are non-traditional. So first-time full-time does not include all of our students in the snapshot, because we have many students who come to us as transfer students with more than 15 credits, and so they are not included. Therefore, what that means is that a small swing in retention can have an outsized impact in terms of the percentage rates from one term to the next. So you can see as you look at some of the data that there will be some pretty high variability. Slide 16 through 20 talks about net student revenue and discounting. And what we can say is that our discounting has steadily increased since 2013. And our discounting, when we calculate that, it's really all of our institutional scholarships and discount programs, including location-based, merit aid, need-based aid that is offered by our colleges. So it does not include the recent scholarship programs funded by the legislature, nor does it include scholarships from VSAC or from the federal government. But what you can see here is that in 2013, our average discount rate was about 7%. And when we look at it this year, our average is about 19%. And what you can see is that from institution to institution, that varies fairly widely, with NVU and Castleton having the greatest amount of discount and VTC and CCV having the lowest. Slide 21 is really just additional information about a few other requirements for us. So as it says here, that we are required to adhere to our board policies and that our chancellor must establish policies and procedures and make sure that they're implemented in addition to hitting our $5 million a year goal. We are adhering to our policies. There are several exceptions that have been approved and waived by our board as we go through transformation. A couple that are related to our financial policies and one that's related to debt service that is actually waived through 2025 based on the way our debt service is structured. So those are the key items on there. You'll also find a supplemental material, not in your slide deck, but as a separate PDF, information on our profit and loss statement, which provides greater context about the VSC's budget, how we performed last year, and frankly, how we performed over the last 10 years, because we do provide composite financial information in there as well. I'm going to turn this over to Catherine now.
Okay,
Thank
is there
you.
any question before we go on to Catherine? Anybody have questions for Ms. Scott? Nope. Okay, thanks. You're back, Senator Kidd.
All right, so I will take you through the next couple of slides, and these focus on the workforce development and education scholarships that were funded by the state last year. And I want to pause here and say these programs are still underway, but thousands of Vermont students have benefited from the generosity of the state last year. And on their behalf, we are truly thankful for the support the state showed both the Vermont State Colleges system and our students. I won't walk you through every single one of these. I'll just hit a couple of highlights. So one of the initiatives, and I know we spent some time in this committee last year talking about, was the Workforce Upskilling Initiative. That was modeled on the successful CRF initiative from fall 2020. And as a reminder, the fall 2020 initiative served 971 Vermonters with 1,398 courses. The initiative that's ongoing this academic year for us is placing 1,148 Vermonters in 2007 courses this academic year. Between the two initiatives, we've been able to offer free courses and training to over 2,000 Vermonters whose employment or employability was impacted by the pandemic. Another initiative that's received a lot of attention has been the Critical Occupations Scholarship. So this was the free last dollar tuition to Vermonters enrolled in certain essential programs. These included nursing and nursing pathways, early childhood education, electrical and plumbing, paramedicine, radiologic science and respiratory therapy, dental hygiene, and those programs that are identified as best bets for a good paying job within 18 months by the McClure Foundation. We were able to serve 1,918 Vermonters with a critical occupation scholarship this year. And if you look at the chart on page 26, slide number 26, you can see that we doubled enrollment in our RN to BSN program at Vermont Technical College. And I'll pause and just reference back to something that CFO Scott and Chancellor Zadatny mentioned earlier, our RN to BSN program is completely online, as is our new Master's in Nursing program at Castleton University. And so these are two programs that are not geographically based. These are two programs that are helping us fulfill our goal of being a truly statewide system. In
Quick
addition,
question.
oh, sure.
Yeah, Senator Lyons.
Yeah, just stepping backwards, as you were listing the various programs that led to occupations, was mental health counseling or mental health support in that list as well?
Yes, we funded the graduate mental health counseling program at Northern Vermont University
Oh,
with the
okay.
scholarship as well. There was a provision in Act 74 as it passed last year that asked us to fund that initiative after all other programs were funded. We did write to the emergency board over the summer. You may recall that we'd exhausted the funding by mid-July. And when we wrote that letter, we requested that we be, given the ongoing pandemic and the critical need in the state, we requested at that time that we be able to fund our graduate mental health counseling students with the scholarship.
Good.
We were encouraged to do so. We did do so. We've heard from many of them what a surprise and incredible investment it's been. We know that that's an occupation that is an essential need to the state. We also know that it is an occupation that you don't become a millionaire being a mental health counselor. And so we were very, very pleased to be able to offer that support to students this year. So continuing, if you look at this chart on slide 26, you can also see tremendous interest in the early childhood education programs. So these programs are available in several of our institutions across the state. We have partnerships with the early childhood education community and offer everything from certificate to bachelor's degree in that program. And we saw tremendous uptick with the free tuition program this year. I'd also like to mention for you, I know the Senate is hard at work in the budget adjustment. The House both funded the additional request that we made in July for funds to continue funding students who were on our wait list at that point for the critical occupation scholarship. And the House also included funding for next fiscal year in the budget adjustment. The reason that that is in the budget adjustment is to allow our financial aid and admissions professionals to award the critical occupation scholarship in alignment with our enrollment cycle, which is currently ongoing. We're very excited to see that investment potentially again for next academic year. The other scholarships the state funded, you can see on slides 27 and 28. And these are a Welcome Home Scholarship for transfer students and a degree completion scholarship for Vermonters with some college credit or credential, but no degree yet. The programs administered by VSAC that you heard about earlier today, the Green Mountain Grad Gift and the 802 Opportunity Program also tremendously benefited our students. We are incredibly supportive of these programs and the proposed increase, especially to 802 Opportunity, increasing the adjusted gross income cutoff to $75,000 a year would tremendously benefit our Community College of Vermont students. Across all of these programs this academic year, nearly 4,000 Vermonters are benefiting from your investments. And you can see we've collected some feedback from students on the programs. And these, when we ask them, what would you like legislators to know about these scholarships? The responses on the slides are their unedited words and their message to you. So on behalf of all of them, I would like to say thank you for the investment, and we're very, very excited about it and really looking forward to continuing to collect information on data on this as we move forward. And I believe CFO Scott will be discussing the budget request next.
Excellent. So we want to, first of all, just start by saying thank you for all of the incredible support that the Vermont State Colleges has received these last couple of years. Through your support, we have been able to really begin transformation and begin in a really great partnership for meeting the needs of the state of Vermont. So we have for you today, as part of our budget request, four key items: the base appropriation, the select committee's recommended increase to the base, the bridge funding that we need in order to help address our structural deficit as we transform, and a workforce development and education affordability proposal for students. At the recommendation of the Select Committee, the Vermont State College's base appropriation last year was increased to $35.5 million from $30.5 million. We are incredibly grateful for that support, and we've worked extremely hard to ensure that we're using these state resources wisely. Guided by the financial projections that were set forth in the Select Committee's report, we know that the Vermont State Colleges will need an additional $12.5 million to meet the needed base appropriation increase over the next 4 years. The governor's budget outlines a $5 million increase in FY23, and we are requesting the full $12.5 million increase this year for a total base appropriation of $48 million. The investment would not only shift Vermont's national rank in public higher education funding, it would also address the very real fears and uncertainty in our campus communities regarding college closures by reassuring our students, alumni, community leaders, and other influencers, such as school counselors, that the Vermont State College institutions are well supported by the state and are really here to stay. Intertwined with the base appropriation request and in alignment with our budget projection and the Select Committee's report is our request for bridge funding. For FY23, we request $7.4 million to address our structural deficit, in addition to the $12.5 million increase to our base. The projection before you accounts for the $5 million reduction in our structural deficit that we need to take this year. The small class we admitted last fall due to COVID, the threat of campus closures, and the receipt of federal HERF funds that are being applied towards the deficit for the coming year. Additionally, this chart shows you previous fiscal years to show you a full picture of the base increases and bridge funding the VSC has generously received from the state these last few years. Recognizing the state's unprecedented availability of one-time funds and the uncertainty of funding availability in the future, and the 4-year plan to address our structural deficit, we're also requesting that the full amount of bridge funding for the next 4 years, $36.4 million, inclusive of the money for FY23, is set aside this year. This would enable us to seek only to maintain our new base appropriation and fund any new workforce development initiatives in future years when the state's fiscal picture may be less bright than it is today. And we fully acknowledge that this is the most difficult funding for you to provide, but it's some of the most essential, as it allows us to honor the recommendations set forth in the Select Committee's report and adopted by the Vermont State College's Board of Trustees, namely to maintain our campus locations, support our local communities, transform meaningfully, strategically, and intentionally, keep key faculty and staff employed, and it enables us to continue to deliver high quality and relevant programs that meet the workforce needs of the state. So in total, we request $55.4 million for FY23, $48 million of this in general fund, and $7.4 million in the one-time bridge funding to be used in FY23. Additionally, we request the bridge funding for FY24 to 26 to be set aside this year, a total of $29 million for structural deficit support in the coming years. Now, we also have several initiatives that we identified as items that would help workforce development. The first is taking lessons that we learned from the FY22 initiatives and offering you these three different options for you to consider. Strengthening nursing education, a Vermont Associates Pledge, and Critical Occupations Plus, which extends the existing program. So in strengthening nursing education, the proposal reduces in-state nursing tuition at Vermont Technical College and Castleton University to the national average of state institutions, which is about $4,500 a semester. We know that affordability of nursing programs is one of the key barriers, and that doing so would help us increase the pipeline seeking for nurses. With 15 nursing sites that we have around the state and our online programs, we are accessible to Vermonters in every corner of the state, and our laddered credentials offered multiple opportunities for upskilling Vermonters at every point in their career. We estimate that the program would cost about $7 million a year, and the governor put forward a proposal to increase VSAC's nursing scholarships. We support that proposal wholeheartedly. In addition, we request that this committee consider recommending funding for the VSC Strengthening Nursing Education Program. Our second proposal would be establishing a Vermont Associates Pledge. And the concept behind this proposal is to lower the Community College of Vermont's tuition to the national median and Vermont Technical College's technical non-nursing programs to the equivalent of SUNY's technical institution programs. If a federal proposal for free community college moved forward, this would allow us to be able to meet those needs. But it really would allow us to be able to move students into programs that are incredibly expensive today for Vermonters because they're extraordinarily expensive to operate, or the sticker price is too high for them. What we're doing today is leaving students outside the door, and we don't want to do that. To cover both lowering CCV's tuition and VTC's technical programs, the cost would be $19 million a year. And then the last program would be Critical Occupations Plus. And so we really learned quite a bit with the first Critical Occupations free tuition program. And this program would fund that program again, but with some adjustments to account for some of the lessons learned. We are really appreciative that the Budget Adjustment Act looks forward towards funding this program for the 22-23 academic year. And on behalf of our students, I just want to say thank you, that this is an incredible investment. What we would be considering asking you for is for future funding is to propose a program that adds to the eligible career paths to include mechanical and electrical engineering, school psychology, and make sure that graduate mental health is included from the outset of the program. Second, we would ask you to consider funding eligible non-citizen residents who were really unable to access the FY22 program because we used Federal American Rescue and Recovery Plan Act funds, so they were therefore unable to access the program. And then third, we suggest considering funding those students who are pursuing a second bachelor's degree in nursing because those students are unable to obtain federal financial aid. And finally, we would ask you to consider including income thresholds that would match the federal stimulus payment thresholds from 2020. Today, the program has no income thresholds. So this program has been incredibly successful. Funding a second round, as we've described here, we believe would cost about $10 million. So we just want to say thank you for having us, and we can answer any questions in the time that we probably don't have.
We have time for a couple questions if anybody has any questions before we move on to our two student guests.
So
Yes,
I've lost track with the addition. What's the total ask?
The total ask is $55.4 million. Catherine, can you actually just throw up that one slide?
If we have it on our website, I think
It's
we
slide 33. I don't believe I have
Yeah.
screen sharing permission.
Yeah.
Okay, slide 33. So on slide 33, just want to make sure that I'm looking at the same slide that you are. If we are where we are today, if we are looking for $55.4 million between base appropriation and bridge. And then in addition, we have the three programs for you to consider that are not noted here. The other item that is not shown on this particular slide is funding an additional $29 million for the remaining bridge funding that is not, that is for future out years.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This was a great start to what will, I'm sure, be the first of actually several visits between now and when the budget's passed. But I appreciate the overview. I appreciate the information. We all do. And I think we're going to have to leave it there for now, as we have two students who are ready to join us to talk about some of their work. So thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Liza and Emma.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, well, thank you both so much. I want to thank Senator Lyons for bringing your work to my attention, as well as I want to thank the two of you for inviting me. And I think you're open to any senator coming this evening. Unfortunately, I cannot. So we thought that perhaps what we would do is have the two of you in today to talk a little bit about this incredible project that you have planned and a little bit of history about the project, as well as we want to share with you, and I think you know that we're also looking at a bill, a piece of legislation that is connected to the work that you're doing. So the floor is yours. Welcome to Senate Education. All we ask is that you just introduce yourselves, say maybe what town you're from, and then go from there.
Okay, so I don't have a presentation written out today just because I have been so insanely busy with everything that's happening. But thank you for having me. I'm Eliza Doucette. I am a student at Mount Abe. I'm from South Stokesboro. I am
Great.
Emma Doucette. She is my twin sister, so we have the same information.
Great.
So
go ahead.
our event starts at 6 o'clock tonight, and it is in Bristol's Holly Hall. We will go over an educational presentation because I believe that not enough people have a clear understanding on the Holocaust and what truly happened, which I think another point that the bill will hopefully help. And then following that, then we will move outside across the street to the Bristol Town Green, where we have a couple of speakers, and then there will be some readings and a candlelighting and vigil.
Wonderful. How did you become interested in doing this?
So growing up Jewish, we have seen anti-Semitism in our community, and I think that a lot of people don't address it, or they say that it's an older issue, that it's not a problem anymore. In reality, Jews are the oldest oppressed group in history, and anti-Semitism is at the highest it's been since the late 1900s.
And are you talking, when you talk about anti-Semitism with those numbers throughout the world, or right now are you thinking right in the United States? In the US, okay.
US. Yeah, so anti-Semitism is more prevalent than ever, and it needs to be addressed. So because we don't trust that our school will teach people enough about it, and that our community is educated enough, then we had to take it into our own hands, and we began to plan this event as a way to address it. Because I think that the first step to fighting hate and its bias is education. And I think that brings us to this bill, S-189.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that it must be passed because education, as Liza said, is essential to fighting hate and ensuring that the Holocaust can never happen again. I see anti-Semitism around me pretty much every day. And simultaneously, I'm told that anti-Semitism doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, or that it wasn't real to begin with. And if students know about the Holocaust, they'll be less likely to harass people, and it will grow up as more responsible citizens. By learning from the past, we can protect the present and the future. And as global citizens, it is our responsibility to educate ourselves and our community.
Terrific. Before we open it up for questions, I'm wondering if you would say a few words about, well, first of all, what grade are you both in?
We are sophomores. We're in 10th grade.
Okay, so you're in 10th grade, and you've learned about the Holocaust through your family, and perhaps through extended family. But what about the formal education of the Holocaust? Has it been brought up in school? I mean, how is it being taught? Is it something you would have, like, if it wasn't something that your family talked about, were there opportunities, do you think, when you may have learned about it, or has it been absent?
I'm from a very open family, and in my family, we've talked about these issues from a very young age, and I've been around them. But I think that growing up and it going in the public school system, we never talked about it. And it even at the small private school that I went to from from 5th grade to 8th grade, it wasn't talked about very often. At Mount Abe, now that I'm at Mount Abe, we spent about a week on the Holocaust, and we did talk about it. And yet I found myself shocked at the way that my teacher believed that he was doing something so special by teaching the Holocaust. It should be normal and expected that they teach the Holocaust, not something that my teacher thinks that he is amazing for doing, because that is the bare minimum. And it also shocked me how he continued to make Holocaust comparisons, and it generally didn't seem as educated as he could have been on the topic. And I think that proves that if a history teacher can still not necessarily know what he needs to be able to effectively teach a body of students, that's just proving that we need change.
Mhm.
I think throughout elementary school, my teachers would always ask me about Hanukkah. Come in and tell us about Hanukkah, light a menorah for us, show us the food. But it was always, it was like people were taking advantage of my Judaism and never teaching the real history. The real history is ugly. It doesn't make a nice story in a classroom, but it's essential. I think that in this society, we do sometimes talk about having these uncomfortable conversations, but we don't often have them. And the Holocaust is something that must be talked about because 11 million people died. 11 million people with families and futures just gone, an entire culture decimated. And it's not pretty. It is not fun history. It is uncomfortable to talk about. It is painful. And that is exactly the reason that we need to be educated on it.
Thank you both. Questions, Senator Lyons, please.
Well, first, I want to say thank you to Eliza for sending the email in the first place. And you have a good friend to help you. And just a couple questions and then a comment, but are you still having your vigil today in Bristol?
Yes.
So it's at 6 o'clock?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry I cannot be there.
That's all right.
And I know that you two are putting together something that is going to be very meaningful for your friends, your families, and for your community. So I have to say how very proud I am of the work that you're doing. And I'm thrilled that you reached out about this.
Well, thank you.
And I completely would agree with you about the very seriousness and the emotional involvement that we all have when we think about the Holocaust. And I don't know if you two have had the experience of going to Washington, D.C. to the Holocaust Museum. Have you done that yet?
No, we have not. We really want to.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting comment to sit on our school trip. We went to a lot of important historical museums, but the Holocaust Museum was never talked about when we went. I believe to DC. It was mentioned once after a long day among other museums as an option, but it did not happen and it was not in our plan. Just a quick note, sorry about the shifting lighting. My dog is playing with the curtains behind me, so.
Oh, we like that.
We like dogs. Yeah, we like dogs.
I do hope that one day you'll be able to get there. It is one of the most powerful things that I've ever done. And I was able to go when there were very few people at the museum, and just having the experience of going in the museum, I won't spoil it for you, but it is a very, very powerful day. So you need to take some time. And I just thank you for what you're doing. It isn't a matter of raising the Holocaust above other historical events, but it's making it equal with those things that are so powerful in our history. So thank you.
That's
Thank
a
you
nice
for your work.
statement. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And I'll share with you, perhaps, I don't know, have you read Night Train or any of Elie Wiesel's
Yeah.
books? Yeah,
Yes, we have.
those are powerful also. And
They're very powerful.
They truly are.
I was so fortunate to meet and visit with Elie Wiesel and over lunch and dinner when he came to visit our college. So I'm glad you're reading his books, because they show what's happened to people at a very personal level. So when we talk, yeah, you
It
got
definitely has, it definitely changes your perspective on things.
Powerful, yeah.
Thank you, and have fun tonight. Is that fun? That is fun. It really is. It's fulfilling what you're doing. I hope that you really feel rewarded by what you're doing today.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks.
it will be good to see it all come together.
Other questions or comments for Eliza or Emma? Is there anything that Centerline's comment about having read Night? Is there anything in particular that the two of you would recommend to people your age or any age that has that you've read or experienced through reading or visually that has really brought the Holocaust to a very personal and sort of transformative level?
Right. So while I was working on getting everything together for this event, then somebody sent over the link to this website. I forget, I think it's connected to maybe the Holocaust Museum or something. I can't remember, to be honest, exactly. And there was this list of biographies of just like hundreds of different Holocaust survivors and victims of all ages. There was talk of kids younger than I was who were gassed. And that, for me, it just sent shivers down my spine, and it really hit me hard. And then I would also say, a couple of years ago, I read a lesser known book called I Will Plant Your Lilac Tree. And it's a memoir that talks about a girl who basically was unknowingly chose to go into concentration camps to be with her family. And I think that really affected me because it graphically describes the horrors of the Holocaust.
I think there's also a book, I'm blinking on what it's called. It's Liza, it's from the author. I'm not sure. Okay. There's also a book I read, unfortunately, I cannot remember what it's called, but it shows a boy who went through, traveled through 10 different concentration camps and survived, the only one of his family.
Well, if you happen to remember, please share that with us. And anything else that you think we should know that we may not have covered today and you're not thinking about, but you may think of this evening during the service or another day, please keep in touch with us. And we really appreciate, as Senator Lyons, I know I'm speaking for all of us, we're all very proud of you and grateful for what you're doing, and look forward to keeping in touch as we make our way through this bill.
Yeah, for sure. And
thank you.
You have my email, so you are welcome to reach out at any time.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for letting us speak today.
Thank you so much. All right.
Okay.
Have a nice evening.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Take
too.
care.
You too.
Thanks.
We have one more witness. Jeff Bannon is going to come in and join us at 4 for a few moments to talk about standardized tests, as well as follow up on a request we had to tell us how we might make our way through giving school teachers relief from school debt. And that will happen at 4. I also just wanted to announce to all of you and to anyone else who's watching that I have asked Secretary French and Dr. Levine to come in next week again, follow up with this committee, give us an update, let us know how they feel as though things are going in our schools as it relates to COVID, check in to see if there are any needs from the legislature as things progress on that end with new guidelines, et cetera. So, Senator Perchlik, did you have a question No. Okay. So we'll wait, take 10 minutes and wrap up. We'll have Jeff in for about 15 minutes. So we'll come back at 4.